How does one woman take on the seemingly unstoppable Hollywood studio system and come out on top with just a single letter? Maureen O'Hara, known for her fierce independence and fiery spirit, did exactly that. At a time when studios ruled actors' careers with an iron grip, controlling everything from their roles to their public images, O'Hara dared to push back. Her story isn't just about rebellion. It's about the courage to say no in an industry built on saying yes. It's a story of power, pride, and an unexpected weapon, a letter that shook Hollywood to its core. Imagine the pressure these actors faced. The studio bosses were almost like kings, dictating who got roles, how they looked, and even where they went. For most, this was the reality. Say yes to anything or risk being blacklisted, losing work, and fading into obscurity. Many actresses swallowed their pride, even when offered roles that were insulting or damaging to their reputations. But not Maureen O'Hara. She was different. Her defiance was more than just stubbornness. It was a stand for dignity in an industry notorious for exploiting its stars. What exactly did O'Hara do that made such waves? She refused a role, a small, seemingly insignificant act, but one that was unheard of in an era where actors were expected to comply without question. And she didn't just refuse verbally. She sent a letter, not a vague note, but a sharply written, clear, and unyielding message to the studio, saying she wouldn't accept a part she felt was beneath her. This letter wasn't just a refusal. It was a declaration of self-respect, a challenge to the system's power. This wasn't just about one role or one movie. It was about an actress asserting control over her career, her image, and her future. The studio system thrived on control, and O'Hara's letter threatened that foundation. It was a bold move, especially for a woman in the 1940s Hollywood machine. And yet, despite the risks, being blacklisted, losing roles, even career suicide, she stood her ground. Her story is not just a Hollywood anecdote. It's a tale of empowerment that echoes through decades. It raises questions. How did she manage to keep her career alive? Did the studios punish her, or did her star power force them to back down? And how did this small act contribute to the slow unraveling of the old Hollywood system? As you watch this video, you'll uncover the behind-the-scenes drama of Maureen O'Hara's fight against the studio system. You'll learn why this one letter still matters today, not just as a Hollywood legend, but as a symbol of standing up for yourself when the odds are stacked against you. Stay with me, because the story gets even more intense. The studio system's grip wasn't easily broken, and what happened after that letter reveals just how high the stakes were for an actress who dared to defy the norm. To understand the weight of Maureen O'Hara's rebellion, you have to grasp just how powerful and ruthless the Hollywood studio system was during her prime. The system was like a factory, mass-producing movies and shaping stars, but with very little room for creativity or independence from the actors themselves. Studios didn't just hire actors, they essentially owned them. Contracts bound stars to studios for years, dictating everything from the parts they played to their public behavior. Actors weren't free agents. They couldn't pick and choose their roles or negotiate their terms without fear. Refusing a part could mean suspension, blacklisting, or worse, the slow death of a career. Studios controlled publicity, press, even personal lives, often scripting the narrative to craft perfect stars. The studio's dominance was absolute, especially during the 1930s and 40s, often called the golden age of Hollywood. Behind the glamour and glitz, stars were trapped in a system designed to keep them compliant and profitable. Women, in particular, faced harsh treatment. They were often typecast into limited roles, damsels, love interests, or glamorous objects, and their input rarely mattered. Challenging the studio meant risking reputation, and actresses who pushed back were branded difficult or labeled as career risks. Yet, some actresses quietly resisted, carving small spaces of autonomy, but very few dared to openly defy the system. In this landscape, Maureen O'Hara stood out. She wasn't just another contract player. She had a spirit that refused to be tamed. She came from Ireland, bringing a strong-willed personality that clashed with Hollywood's expectations of female stars. She was known for being outspoken, unafraid to speak her mind on set and off. This attitude earned her respect, but also made her a target for studio heads who wanted obedient actors. The studio system was notoriously harsh in punishing rebellion. Actors who disobeyed orders or clashed with producers could find themselves put on suspension, meaning no work and no pay, or worse, dropped entirely. This threat loomed over every decision an actor made. The fear of losing fame, money, and momentum was constant. Many actresses swallowed their frustrations, playing along to survive. But Maureen's story changes the script. Instead of quietly accepting a role she detested, she wrote a letter. A bold, clear rejection that was rare and risky in those days. It wasn't just about refusing a job. It was a refusal to be controlled and a demand for respect. And this defiance was a direct challenge to the studio's iron grip. It's important to note that by the late 1940s and early 1950s, cracks were beginning to show in the studio system. The rise of television, legal challenges to the studio's monopolies, and shifting audience tastes were slowly changing Hollywood's power dynamics. But even then, studios still held considerable sway, and O'Hara's letter was a lightning rod moment within that tension. Her stand wasn't just a personal battle. It was a symbol of the changing times. Actors were starting to realize they didn't have to be mere pawns. The fight for creative freedom was beginning, and Maureen O'Hara's letter was a small but fierce spark in that revolution. Next, we'll dive into what made O'Hara such a unique figure, the fearless actress behind that letter, who refused to be anyone's puppet. To understand the weight of Maureen O'Hara's rebellion, you have to grasp just how powerful and ruthless the Hollywood studio system was during her prime. The system was like a factory, mass-producing movies and shaping stars, but with very little room for creativity or independence from the actors themselves. Studios didn't just hire actors, they essentially owned them. Contracts bound stars to studios for years, dictating everything from the parts they played to their public behavior. Actors weren't free agents. They couldn't pick and choose their roles or negotiate their terms without fear. Refusing a part could mean suspension, blacklisting, or worse, the slow death of a career. Studios controlled publicity, press, even personal lives, often scripting the narrative to craft perfect stars. The studio's dominance was absolute, especially during the 1930s and 40s, often called the golden age of Hollywood. Behind the glamour and glitz, stars were trapped in a system designed to keep them compliant and profitable. Women, in particular, faced harsh treatment. They were often typecast into limited roles, damsels, love interests, or glamorous objects, and their input rarely mattered. Challenging the studio meant risking reputation, and actresses who pushed back were branded difficult or labeled as career risks. Yet, some actresses quietly resisted, carving small spaces of autonomy, but very few dared to openly defy the system. In this landscape, Maureen O'Hara stood out. She wasn't just another contract player. She had a spirit that refused to be tamed. She came from Ireland, bringing a strong-willed personality that clashed with Hollywood's expectations of female stars. She was known for being outspoken, unafraid to speak her mind on set and off. This attitude earned her respect, but also made her a target for studio heads who wanted obedient actors. The studio system was notoriously harsh in punishing rebellion. Actors who disobeyed orders or clashed with producers could find themselves put on suspension, meaning no work and no pay, or worse, dropped entirely. This threat loomed over every decision an actor made. The fear of losing fame, money, and momentum was constant. Many actresses swallowed their frustrations, playing along to survive. But Maureen's story changes the script. Instead of quietly accepting a role she detested, she wrote a letter. A bold, clear rejection that was rare and risky in those days. It wasn't just about refusing a job. It was a refusal to be controlled and a demand for respect. And this defiance was a direct challenge to the studio's iron grip. It's important to note that by the late 1940s and early 1950s, cracks were beginning to show in the studio system. The rise of television, legal challenges to the studio's monopolies, and shifting audience tastes were slowly changing Hollywood's power dynamics. But even then, studios still held considerable sway, and O'Hara's letter was a lightning rod moment within that tension. Her stand wasn't just a personal battle. It was a symbol of the changing times. Actors were starting to realize they didn't have to be mere pawns. The fight for creative freedom was beginning, and Maureen O'Hara's letter was a small but fierce spark in that revolution. Next, we'll dive into what made O'Hara such a unique figure, the fearless actress behind that letter, who refused to be anyone's puppet. In a world where actors were expected to bow and obey, Maureen O'Hara did something extraordinary. She wrote a letter that sent shockwaves through Hollywood. It wasn't a vague complaint or a polite refusal. It was a direct, unflinching refusal to take a role she believed was beneath her. And that single act of defiance became one of the most talked about moments in studio history. The role in question wasn't a lead, but rather a part that O'Hara felt would damage her career and dignity. Studios often shuffled actors into lesser roles as punishment or simply because they held all the power. For many stars, accepting these roles was a matter of survival, but Maureen refused to be treated like a replaceable cog. What makes this letter remarkable isn't just the refusal, it's the tone. Instead of begging for understanding or carefully towing the line, O'Hara's letter was clear, firm, and unapologetic. She laid out her reasons with calm conviction, making it impossible to ignore. It was a direct challenge to the studio's authority, a statement that she wouldn't be controlled or diminished. Writing such a letter in the 1940s or 50s was almost unheard of, especially for a woman in Hollywood. The studios expected compliance, and letters like this risked blacklisting or career sabotage. But O'Hara's confidence, built on years of experience and a strong sense of self-worth, gave her the courage to take this stand. The letter wasn't just about one role. It was a fight for creative respect and personal dignity. It demanded the right to say no, to refuse parts that didn't align with her values or talent. And for an actress known for her fiery spirit, it was a natural extension of everything she believed in. This act of rebellion wasn't just symbolic. It tested the limits of the studio system's control and showed that even stars who were owned by studios could push back. The letter became a spark, highlighting the cracks in Hollywood's golden facade. What happened next is where the story gets intense. Studios didn't take kindly to this kind of insubordination. O'Hara faced immediate backlash, with rumors swirling that she was punished behind the scenes, roles taken away, pressure to conform, even whispers of being blacklisted. But she didn't fold. Instead, she held her ground, her star power and public support shielding her from the worst consequences. This letter wasn't just a message to the studio. It was a message to every actor struggling under the system. It proved that defiance was possible, that actors could claim control over their careers and images. And while Hollywood didn't change overnight, Maureen O'Hara's letter became a landmark moment. It foreshadowed the eventual decline of the studio system and the rise of greater actor autonomy. Up next, we'll explore the fallout from the letter, the studio's reaction, the rumors, and how O'Hara managed to survive and even thrive despite the risks she took. Maureen O'Hara's bold letter sent a clear message, but it also stirred up a storm behind the scenes. The Hollywood studio system was built on control and conformity, and when a star stepped out of line, the repercussions could be severe. What followed after O'Hara's letter is a tale of tension, resilience, and the complicated dance between power and personality in classic Hollywood. The immediate reaction from the studio was predictably harsh. Executives didn't like being challenged, especially not by a woman in a male-dominated industry. Rumors soon spread that O'Hara faced punishment. Roles were delayed, scripts shuffled, and she was labeled difficult in Hollywood circles. There was talk she might be blacklisted, a terrifying prospect that could mean the end of her career. But O'Hara wasn't easily sidelined. Unlike many who quietly accepted such pressure, she used her rising star power to push back. Her box office draw and undeniable talent gave her leverage the studios couldn't easily ignore. In an industry where money often spoke louder than politics, the studios had to balance their frustration with the reality that audiences loved Maureen O'Hara. Whispers in Hollywood suggested that the letter sparked private meetings behind closed doors. Studio heads attempted to rein her in with offers, warnings, and promises of better roles if she would just toe the line. Yet Maureen held firm, refusing to sacrifice her principles for short-term gain. This resilience was unusual, and it changed how studios viewed her. No longer just a contract player, she was a woman who demanded respect, and studios had to reckon with that. Her career didn't collapse, but it certainly didn't sail smoothly either. There were periods when roles were scarce or less appealing, a subtle form of punishment. Yet, over time, O'Hara's steadfastness paid off. She continued to star in major films alongside leading men like John Wayne, solidifying her legacy. This push and pull with the studio wasn't just about her career, it was a sign of the shifting tides in Hollywood. What made O'Hara's survival remarkable was her ability to navigate the studio's wrath without losing public support. Fans admired her strength and authenticity, which helped shield her from the worst of the fallout. She wasn't just seen as a rebellious actress, but as a symbol of dignity and self-respect. At the same time, this episode exposed how fragile the studio system really was. The control studios wielded over actors was immense, but it wasn't absolute. Stars like Maureen O'Hara, armed with talent and conviction, could push back, and in doing so, pave the way for future generations. There's also speculation about just how much damage the studios intended to do. Some insiders suggest the backlash was more about sending a warning to others than actually ending her career. They wanted to make an example, but didn't expect her to fight back so effectively. The fallout from that letter was intense, but ultimately transformative for O'Hara and Hollywood itself. It showed that defiance came with a price, but also that it could change the game. Next, we'll dive into the long-term impact of her stand and how it shaped not only her career, but the future of actor autonomy in the industry. Maureen O'Hara's courageous stand with that single letter didn't just mark a moment of personal victory. It became a symbol of a shifting Hollywood landscape. While her immediate defiance rattled the studio system, its long-term impact echoed far beyond her own career, helping to reshape how actors interacted with the powerful studios that once controlled them so completely. In the decades following her act of rebellion, Hollywood slowly began to loosen its grip on talent. The once monolithic studio system started to crumble under the weight of legal challenges, changing audience tastes and new forms of entertainment like television. But Maureen's letter was a signpost along that path, a concrete example of a star refusing to be a mere puppet and demanding creative respect. Her stand inspired other actors, both men and women, to reconsider the roles they accepted and the power they held. The notion that an actor could say no, negotiate terms, or refuse parts without fear of immediate career ruin was still rare, but it was gaining traction. O'Hara's story became part of Hollywood lore, a testament to the importance of personal integrity in an industry built on image and control. Maureen herself continued to work with major studios, but on her own terms. She chose roles that showcased her strength and talent, refusing to be typecast or diminished. This insistence on respect wasn't just about ego. It was a fight for dignity and creative freedom, qualities many actors today still strive for. In recent years, retrospectives and biographies have celebrated her as a pioneer, Film historians point to her letter as a defining moment in the decline of the studio system's absolute control. It was a bold crack in the facade, showing that even the most powerful Hollywood empires could be challenged by individual courage. O'Hara's legacy is also cultural. She embodied a new kind of female star, independent, outspoken, and unapologetic. In an era when women were often sidelined or expected to conform, she carved out a space for herself that future actresses would build on. Her story resonates today as the entertainment industry continues to wrestle with issues of power, control, and respect for artists. Beyond Hollywood, her letter symbolizes a universal truth about standing up for oneself in the face of overwhelming pressure. It reminds us that sometimes one act of defiance is enough to start a ripple effect of change. Maureen O'Hara's fight was far from easy. She faced backlash, risked her career, and took on an entire system. But she also won respect and opened doors. Her story is a powerful reminder that creative freedom is hard-won, but worth fighting for. Coming up next, we'll explore some of the lesser-known rumors and speculations surrounding this iconic moment. The hidden stories and behind-the-scenes drama that continue to intrigue fans and historians alike. No Hollywood story is complete without a swirl of rumors and whispered secrets. And Maureen O'Hara's stand against the studio system is no exception. While the letter itself is legendary, what really happened behind closed doors remains part fact, part mystery. Over the years, fans and historians have pieced together accounts that reveal a more complex, shadowy picture of O'Hara's clash with Hollywood's power players. One of the most persistent rumors is that O'Hara's letter wasn't just a solo act of defiance, but part of a larger pushback brewing among actors at the time. Some insiders suggest she was quietly supported by a few influential figures who were tired of the studio's iron fist. While nothing official ever came to light, these whispers imply her rebellion was more than just personal. It was a symptom of a growing desire for freedom in Tinseltown. Behind the scenes, it's said that the studio executives were blindsided by her letter. They hadn't expected such direct confrontation, especially from a female star who was under contract and, by their standards, supposed to be obedient. The shock was real enough that some executives reportedly debated how to handle her, torn between punishment and pragmatism. The fact that she was a box office draw complicated things. Could they afford to lose her, or would cracking down too hard backfire? There's also speculation about the role of her close relationships in Hollywood. Maureen was known to be close with John Wayne and director John Ford, two powerful men in the industry. Some say their support helped shield her from the worst fallout, giving her a rare safety net. But this protection wasn't absolute. O'Hara still faced professional risks and likely endured pressure behind the scenes that was never made public. Another layer of intrigue surrounds the exact content of the letter. While the letter itself has never been publicly released, people who have read it describe it as sharp, eloquent, and firm, far from a typical "I'm sorry, but" response. Its tone reportedly stunned studio heads, combining professionalism with a clear refusal to back down. This powerful language may have made it impossible for the studios to simply ignore or dismiss her stance. Some rumors even suggest that after the letter, O'Hara was offered roles that were intentionally bad or humiliating as a warning to other actors. Whether true or exaggerated, these stories paint a picture of a tense, high-stakes power struggle beneath Hollywood's polished exterior. Lastly, there's a fascinating theory that O'Hara's letter helped sow the seeds for changes that came years later, including the rise of independent producers and talent agents who empowered actors to negotiate better contracts and conditions. In this view, her small act of rebellion was a catalyst for a broader cultural shift in the industry. While we may never know every detail of what really happened, these rumors and speculations add depth to Maureen O'Hara's legendary story. They remind us that behind every bold public act, there's a complex web of alliances, fears, and strategic moves. Up next, we'll wrap up with a powerful conclusion reflecting on O'Hara's legacy and what her story teaches us about standing up to powerful systems, even with just one letter. Maureen O'Hara's story is a powerful reminder that sometimes a single act can echo far beyond its moment. That one letter she wrote, clear, firm, and unyielding, was more than just a refusal. It was a declaration of self-respect and a challenge to a system built on control and silence. In an era when the studio system dictated nearly every aspect of an actor's life, her courage to push back set her apart. Her stand wasn't easy. It came with risks, professional backlash, rumors, and the threat of being sidelined in an unforgiving industry. But O'Hara's resilience and talent ensured she survived the storm. More importantly, her defiance cracked open a door for others to follow, planting the seeds for the gradual erosion of the old studio monopoly. Today, we look back and see Maureen O'Hara as more than a classic Hollywood star. She was a pioneer who fought for creative freedom when such a fight was rare and risky, especially for women. Her story continues to inspire actors and creatives who face their own battles against rigid systems of control. The letter wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a symbol of empowerment. It showed that even in a world stacked against you, a single voice can demand change. O'Hara's legacy is a testament to the power of standing up for one's principles, and it reminds us that true respect is earned, not given. Her fight helped shift Hollywood's culture, contributing to a future where actors could negotiate, reject, and shape their careers on their own terms. It's a legacy that extends beyond the silver screen, resonating with anyone who's ever felt pressured to compromise their values. Maureen O'Hara's story challenges us to consider what it means to have courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Her letter wasn't just a battle against the studio. It was a statement about dignity, worth, and the importance of creative control. It's a story worth remembering because it's proof that sometimes one bold act can change everything. So the next time you watch a classic film starring O'Hara, remember the woman behind the scenes who fought not just for roles, but for respect. Her story is a beacon for anyone who wants to break free from restrictions, and it continues to inspire even decades later. What began as one letter became a legacy, one that changed Hollywood forever.